everybody. Welcome to Texas REIAs. I'm Shenoah Grove. I'm the founder of Texas REIAs. Excited to be here with you guys tonight, sharing some tribal knowledge about investing in real estate from what we've learned over the last almost 2 decades investing here in Texas. So we've got a lot of great information to share with you guys for folks that have been able to survive and thrive no matter what the market has thrown at us. And are we in a little bit of uncertainty where we are in the market right now? What do you think? Who might be a little nervous? Who might say, like, I'm a little late to the real estate investing party? Who's thinking that? Guys, listen, you can start at the top of the market, you can start at the bottom of the market, you can start in the middle of the market, and there's different strategies to be able to make money no matter where we are. So want to make sure you guys aren't afraid of investing right now. We have interest rates that are going up, but guys, when I first started investing, interest rates were another 1 to 2 points higher than they are today. And I still did really well as a real estate investor. You guys can also still do really well as real estate investors, even in an increasing interest rate market. So we'll share with you what the market update looks like. So I've got the latest Dallas data, so you guys will be interested in seeing that. And we'll share with you all the things that we expect to see in the market over the next 6 months, so through the rest of 2022. And as we go through the presentation, I'll share a little bit about Texas REIAs. So we meet every Tuesday in Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. So these are all the places that we invest at. We have power teams, title attorneys, contractors, realtors, brokers, everything that you need to be successful in all of those different markets. So even if you're investing right here, you may find a deal in one of those other markets. So Texas REIAs covers all of Texas. We have a player deep, 5 players deep in every single category that you might need some assistance in. And a great place to be able to get that assistance is on that Texas REIAs Facebook page. So hope you guys decide to join us. And I will tell you that we invest in all asset classes. So I like to think we are asset class agnostic. So whether it's single family, whether it's duplexes, whether it's multifamily, whether it's storage facility, RV park, and much more, if it has an opportunity to make money, we're going to figure that out to be able to do that. And when we talk tonight about investing, much of the stuff that we'll cover will go through all of those different asset classes. And for those of you guys who are joining us online, hi guys, I want to make sure that you know that we have a YouTube page, Facebook group, and as well as Instagram, as well as podcasts, all of those different things. So no matter how you take your information, we're there to be able to serve you guys. And for those of you guys who are here and want to binge watch all things Texas REIAs, after you leave here tonight, you can subscribe to our podcast and take notes of all of the different tribal knowledge and all the prior market updates that we give every single week. So part of what we do here is we always like to say we are Texans investing in Texas and Texans teaching Texans how to invest in Texas. So what that means is don't ask me about another state. I only know the rules and the laws here. I will advise you guys that if you are investing here in Texas, that you learn from other people that are also living, working, investing in Texas. It breaks my heart when I see people who are learning from some of these out-of-state folks that might sound really fantastic, but might be teaching you something that might be illegal in Texas. So I want to make sure you guys are learning from folks who have the power team here, have that group of local, ethical real estate investors to be able to help you grow your business and be able to help you strive no matter what the market is throwing at you. And as we go through tonight, I want to make sure you have some of the basics down. So some of the basics include knowing where to find that contract. So the contract is free and available to all of you guys. The contract, you can just do a search for TREC, that stands for Texas Real Estate Commission. It is a government agency. So the website, the URL is trec.tx.gov.us. What the heck were they thinking when they came up with this naming recognition? One laugh. Yeah. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be a great night. I'm going to have so much fun up here with you guys. Also want to make sure you can use all of those contracts that are on there. So there's about 30 different contracts forms, addenda, disclosures, terminations, etc. So that's what you will use. I want you to use those because if you're using a 1 or 2 page contract that you found off the internet or that some out-of-state guru told you to use, it's gonna I think the best way to describe it is kind of like a hospital gown, right? It's going to cover you mostly, right? Except you don't want a strong breeze to come through. So instead of being partially covered using one of those 1 or 2 page contracts that you find online, let's get all the way covered using the TREC contract. It is free. It is available for you guys to use. It's plug in the blank, but it is, there's probably about 82 different boxes and checks and places for initials and things for you to write in. Luckily, it's kind of written Mad Lib style. So for those of you guys who are my age or had the Mad Libs things when you were a kid, it'll say give you context clues like a $sign or insert verb or insert noun here. So the TREC contract's not too dissimilar, and it's going to be the one to protect you no matter what the market throws at you or no matter what the situation throws at you. I also have a few examples here of how much you should be offering as a real estate investor. So we typically use the formula 70% of the ARV minus repairs. That's what keeps us safe as a real estate investor. And the reason why we use that in math, and I'm actually going to roll back a couple of slides just so you can see the whole part of it here. ARV stands for after repair value. The repairs, these are the repairs that you're going to want to put in order to get that very high after repair value. And I will tell you, for every $1 that you overpay on this formula is a $1 that you are going to lose in terms of your profit. And typically your profit when you're using this formula is somewhere between 10 to 15% of your ARV. So if, for example, you have an ARV of $300,000 and the property needs $60,000 in repairs, who's got my answer for me of how much you're offering? ARV is 300, repairs are 60,000. We use 70% of ARV minus repairs formula. Who's my walking calculator? 210 is 70%, and then we have $60,000 in repairs. So what's my offer? 150. Yeah, 150. So if we offer 150, typically we'll make somewhere between 10 to 15% of the ARV, so somewhere between $30,000 and $45,000. Now you'll make $30,000 if you've got a hard money lender, because they usually take up about 5% of that ARV, and you'll make $45,000 if you are bringing your own cash or have a very low cost of capital. So want to make sure that you protect yourself, because probably my least favorite quote in real estate investing is, my renovation project came in on time and on budget. Who said that? That would be no one, ever, right? So want to make sure that you have a little bit of opportunity to account for things that go wrong. One of the things that I hear constantly from a lot of new investors as they're getting started is, wow, I wasn't going to make money, but the market saved me. Have any of you been in that situation? Have any of you said, I wasn't going to make money on that deal, but the market saved me? What does that mean? The value went up enough to make up for all of the mistakes that I made. How does that sound? It sounds a little bit like gambling to me, right? Sounds like you didn't do your due diligence, sounds like you didn't do your homework. And if you didn't do your due diligence and you didn't do your homework, yes, you better hope that the market will save you. Over the last 3 years, has the market been saving a lot of people? Yes. What do you think is going to happen over the next year? Less saving. So less saving, what that means for you is more due diligence on the front end, right? More due diligence on the front end, and especially when we're in an environment where, and probably one of the big things that is driving inflation right now is what? Cost to buy, or the build cost, right, on houses. So we're seeing that a lot lately, and that's going to be one of the things I think that we're going to continue to see for quite a while, because our people, especially here in Texas, because our people moving to Texas. Yes, by raise of hands, how many of you guys have been here for less than 5 years? Yeah, by raise of hands, how many of you guys have been here for less than a year? Just curious. Okay, a couple of you guys. So you're not the only ones. If you look on these roads, seems like every 50th car is a car from someone who is moving here recently from out of state, and that's going to continue to come. People are moving out of California. People are moving out of Illinois. People are moving out of New York to come here because the jobs are here, because it's business friendly. In fact, whole businesses are relocating their headquarters to Dallas, to Austin, to San Antonio, to Houston. And I think we're going to continue to see that over the next several years as well. You guys need to be ready for that, as that's going to be a boon in terms of continuing to hold up our prices when we may see prices in other states start to go down, especially in a rising interest rate environment. And guys, as we go through the presentation, I'm super curious, is there anyone in here who's actively working on a deal right now? Yes, okay, you guys. Sir, you're closest. Could I convince you to come and talk to us about your deal? Yeah, okay, good. I've got this, I'm sorry, Shane. I was talking about you. I didn't even see Shane. I'll talk to Shane next, but so what's your name? And actually, I've got a mic right here. If you'll stand in front of that microphone right there. Yeah, right where Shane is, in fact. And say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
What's Richard?
Richard.
Awesome. Tell me what you're working on.
So I have a couple deals, one in Killeen, Texas, and one in Waco.
Okay.
So it's going to be, one's going to be a full rehab, and one's going to be more of a, probably about 10,000.
So are you looking for a partner? Are you looking for funding? Are you looking to wholesale?
I'm looking probably for funding and more doing fix and flips.
Okay, funding. So that's perfect. So what brought so you're in Dallas. What brought your marketing to Killeen and Waco?
I'm actually from Copper's Cove, so I know the area.
Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. Do you already have a power team set up and ready to go there?
I got a couple real estate agents down there.
Okay, cool.
I got a contractor that is actually my cousin down in Killeen, Texas. So.
Okay, all right, fantastic. So tell me about the numbers on your deals.
So the full rehab should bring me at least 45 after everything is said and done, and then
write these numbers down, guys. Rehab 45K.
And the one in Waco, I'm looking probably to hold because it's closer to Baylor.
Okay. So the one where you gave us the rehab number 45. What are you buying it for?
That one I bought for 130.
Okay, and what's the ARV?
The ARV on that one should come to about 210. 210.
So who's doing some math for me? 210 times 70% is 147. Is that right? Yes. Somebody, who's my walking calculator in here? 147. I'll pull out mine. So 147, and then you said you have 35K in repairs, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then you said you had it under contract for
130.
130. What do you guys think about that? Who did the math with me? What should he have it under contract for? 112. 112. He has it under contract for 130. What did I tell you guys make on a deal? You make somewhere between 10 to 15% of your ARV. So 10% of your ARV, if you're using hard money, is going to be around $21,000. Right. But you have it under contract for 130.
Yeah, that one I'm probably going to end up holding anyway because since it's in the clean area. I'm looking at Fort Hood with all the military in and out.
Okay, so just to kind of walk through the math, if you're buying it for 130 and you should be buying it for
about 112.
112, then just doing my math live right here, you're overpaying by 18,000. Right. If your profit on the deal is 21, then you're making $3,000 probably after holding it for somewhere between 3 and 6 months. Right. Who wants that deal?
It's close to the numbers, but it's
okay.
I should get more out of it.
Okay. So one of the things you said is you're buying and holding it, right? Correct. So I will tell you that any mistake that you may make on overpaying on the buy, because as real estate investors we make our money on the buy, can be remedied by holding on to it long enough and watching that appreciation happen.
Right.
So if in that area, if the prices are expected over the next year to go up 10%, then there's your 21,000, right? So you just have to hold it for at least a year and also hope that the market continues to hold up.
Correct.
So guys, did you follow the math on that? ARV was 210. 210 times 70% is 147, right? Repairs were the 35,000, right? So that means our maximum allowable offer is 112, right? He's got it for 130, so that's what did I say, an $18,000 overpayment.
Yes.
But since he's going to hold it, right, if the values go up, instead of only making $3,000 on that, if he holds it for at least a year, he's got an opportunity to make 21 plus 3, an opportunity to make $24,000 on it, right? What's the other benefit that he gets to have if he holds it for at least a year and sells it after a year? Rents. What else? Depreciation. What else? What tax bracket, if you will, does that put him in? Long-term capital gains, right? So he goes from paying what your current tax rate is, somewhere between 30 and 37 some odd percent, right, to go paying somewhere between 15 and 20% depending on what your income is right now. So does that make a big difference for us as well? And the answer is yes. And then are you but I will say, if you're going to get it financed by a hard money lender, how long does a hard money lender typically want to keep your deal in their inventory? 6 months.
3-6 months.
6 months,
Right.
yeah.
This was a private lender though. And many private. I mean, I loan a lot, and I'm generous. I'm going to give you 7 months. Don't spend it all in one place, you know. Right.
But typically, I want my money back in 6 to 7 months, just like everybody else, because I want to roll it into the next deal, because I want the points on the next deal, right? So I would just make sure that your lender can kind of be flexible with you, right? So that's when we're in a market where there's uncertainty, when we're in a market where there's rising interest rates, when we're in a market where, you know, some people are forecasting an economic downturn, the more options that we have on the lending side. So it's really the finance, I commonly refer to it as financing for the win, which means financing to make sure that you don't get foreclosed on in, you know, 6 months or a year or whatever it is. Some lenders will extend, right? So I'll always extend for another 3 months for another 2 points on that loan. I lend very, I make sure you guys win too, right? So when I'm lending, but make sure that you have some of those options to be able to extend, number one, and then just know that if you're refinancing it, and this is where it gets a little tricky. In fact, my tip of the week this week is going to talk a little bit about some refinancing issues and how different ways to be able to overcome those. But usually if you're refinancing in less than a year, they only want to give you what you purchased the property for, as opposed to what all you have in it. So that means you're going to be keeping some capital in it that you might want to be deploying in other assets. So can I give you a small tip to be able to get a good win on this? So one of the things that we've done is in events like this, so where we're buying, in your case, you're buying for 130 and you're going to put 35 into it, right? So what I might suggest that you do is change the contract, so do an amendment to the contract to increase the price from 130 to 165, but ask the seller to give you a $35,000 rebate for repairs.
Okay, makes sense.
What does that do? Do you guys follow that? What does that do?
It knocks out my cost, my $35,000 cost.
Well, it doesn't knock out your cost. I mean, you're still paying the same amount either way. You're getting that $35,000 on the HUD, but when a lender goes to refinance you, what are they going to look at? Your 165 purchase. So then you can pull out the whole 165 when you go to refinance it, right? Okay. So that's just a little trick that we've used many times. The other benefit of doing that is if you do end up selling it, and who is your likely buyer in Killeen, what kind of a loan are they going to bring? They're going to bring a VA loan. They're going to bring a VA loan. And what do VA lenders sometimes like to see? Anybody flipped a house to a VA buyer? If it's less than 6 months, they're probably going to ask you for a copy of your original closing documents. And if they see that you're buying it for $130 and now selling it for $210 and it's only been 6 months, and they don't hear the other part of the story of my blood, sweat, and tears, and also $35,000 went into that house, they only look at the $130. And then they say, what? This smells a little fishy to me. And sometimes they give you trouble on the appraisal. So if you have it up to 165, you still might get a little pushback on that. Pushback is easy, and I'll tell you how to handle it. So sometimes a bank will say, an appraisal won't come in at where you want it to come in at. You can always ask for a second appraisal.
Right.
Another option, and this is going to be a little tougher in the clean market, as you can say, as an example, because of that title seasoning issue, right, that you only want cash buyers. Now, 30% of the sales that happen in the market are cash buyers.
Right.
Probably, I would guess, maybe that number might only be 20% in Killeen. I don't know for sure, but if you find another investor who wants a turnkey rental, so let's say you get a tenant in there and you want to sell it exactly like that, that investor might see a bigger benefit, for example, and not come with a VA loan versus someone who's going to be living there as their own personal homestead.
Makes sense.
So does that make sense?
Yes.
Was this helpful to you?
Most definitely.
Okay, good. Was this helpful to you guys? I hope it wasn't. Some of this is like what you do after year 10. Thank you, Richard. A round of applause for Richard for chatting about his deal. Yeah. Shane, I think I talked about your deal one other time, but if you've got something new you want to share, or did we chat about? Okay, yeah. Tell me what you're working on.
So yeah, I have 2 lease options right now.
Okay.
For Collin County.
Okay, 2 lease options in Collin County. Are you the buyer, or are you the seller, or is it a sandwich lease option?
It's a sandwich.
Okay, so remind me, Shane, where you're from.
I'm from Plano.
You're from Plano. Tell me about your lease option deal.
So the first deal, I need a JV partner for both of these. The initial investment would be $53,000. And the ROI is about 18 to 20% for 3 years, year over year.
Okay.
The next one is the initial investment.
And just a quick timeout.
Yeah.
So you're buying it from a homeowner.
Correct.
And then you're going
for
to.
a tenant buyer. I already have the families in place.
You already have the tenant buyer family in place.
Correct.
And what's the term of the contract for the tenant buyer?
3 years.
Okay. What do we know about that, guys? What do we know about that? Shane, just Google lease options in Texas.
3 years is the max in Texas.
No.
No?
180 days. Yes. They changed that law about 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And people still talk about lease options on the internet, though. And this is why that's why I asked where you're from, because for some reason I thought you were from another state, because the last time I saw you.
I'm originally from Oklahoma.
You're originally from Oklahoma. Oklahoma, I think you can do lease options there all day long, for as long as you want.
Yeah.
In Texas, if it's over 180 days, you get into a very scary legal environment. So I highly recommend just Google lease options in Texas. There are going to be several articles about it, but basically they're going to say that the tenant buyer has to execute, meaning purchase that property in that lease option period. It's not even 6 months, it's actually less than 180 days. That's how the law is written. Now, the problem with this law, and it's heartbreaking. Why do we do a lease option? Why do we want to do a lease option? Because the tenant buyer, what? Doesn't have their credit in order. The tenant and buyer doesn't have their down payment in order. And the tenant buyer doesn't qualify for a traditional loan, right? But give them 3 years, and we're going to get them there, because we're going to work with them, and we're going to credit counsel them, and we're going to do all this stuff. 3 years is about how, at least a year, right? And then up to 3 years to save for the down payment, everything like that, is about how long you need for a credit repair and a down payment issue. Can you get it done in less than 180 days? No. So a lot of times people want to get very clever and say, okay, well, every 180 days, I'm going to sign a new contract with you. That's clever, right? Makes sense, right? Well, what is a jury of your peers who cannot get out of jury duty going to think of you, Mr. Investor? What do you think? Somebody getting taken advantage of? Yes. Is it the tenant buyer? Yes. Did we know that we were going to go over 180 days? Yes. So let me just give you an idea of how strict some of these penalties are. Paying the tenant buyer back for every single dollar that they paid you. Paying the tenant buyer back for any repairs that they may have made on that property. Who wants in? Even at 18%? Probably no one. But let me tell you something. I have a better solution for you.
Okay.
And it's something that we call, what solution are we going to give him? How are we going to solve his problem? A wraparound mortgage.
Okay.
Wraparound mortgage closes that transaction. So your tenant buyer is no longer a tenant, he's the owner now. They do have to come up with the money to close on the transaction, and Shane, they also have to come up with some money to compensate you for putting these two pieces together.
Right.
So ultimately you need to find a seller with, in some cases, what we call little, no, or negative equity. And you've got a buyer who has, I'm hoping, some type of a down payment, right? As long as they have a down payment, then you will get cashed out by putting this deal together. Now, you will have had to have, and this may be your job leaving here tonight, you'll have to go back to the seller that you're working with and say, I've got great news. And I've got some bad news too. Which one do you want to hear first? The good news is, I still want to buy your house. The bad news is, I'm going to have to buy it leaving your existing loan in place.
Okay.
But I'm going to secure your loan in place, and I'm going to make you the Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citi, etc., by giving you a new note, a new promissory note, and a new deed of trust. What does a promissory note and a deed of trust allow us to do in the great state of Texas? Foreclose on someone who is not making payments. Foreclose on someone who is not making payments. That's how your seller is secure. Okay, and then again, you can buy a house that is worth $300. You can buy it for $320 and go and sell it for $330. Sounds outrageous, right? But why can you do that? Only if you have a tenant buyer who can't qualify traditionally for a mortgage. Do you see people all the time who pay more because their credit or something else in their credit life is not in order? And the answer is yes, right? Not being there will cost you. Yeah. Now, in your discussion with your end buyer is that, again, any mistake that you make on the buy, as long as you hold it long enough, right, you'll be just fine. The other advantage for your end buyer in doing this is, let's say on a $300,000 house, how much does a bank typically want you to put down on a $300,000 house? 20%, like $60,000, right? So if your buyer is only putting down maybe 20 or 25,000, enough to pay the closing costs and enough to give you somewhere between, a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 fee for what you've done, has that buyer kept $35,000 in his or her pocket? Versus putting $60,000 on a loan. Do you guys follow that? And then what can they do with that, $30,000 that might actually bring them, a better opportunity on something, something else that they're investing in. Yeah. The other benefit of this is the amortization cycle, or the amortization period. Most houses are sold when they're sold with a loan on a 30-year amortization. Right. When we're buying a property subject to the existing mortgage, typically the original owner has already owned it for somewhere between 5 and 10 years. What does that mean? They have paid for the most expensive part of this loan that does absolutely nothing for them, which means they have paid 5 years or 10 years of all interest. And what does that mean that your end buyer does now not have to pay? Those first 5 or 10 years of interest. So even though they might be overpaying on the high level or the top level dollar amount, they are going to be significantly underpaying versus if they got a new 30-year mortgage, put that $60,000 down and started that amortization cycle from day 0. So that's, do you guys follow how you sell that? Right? So when you look at a house and when you're buying with a loan on a $100,000 house, you might pay, depending on your interest rate, $200,000, $250,000 over the course of that 30 years, right? And you only get to that magic moment where you're paying more for principal versus paying more in interest in year 17. So the closer you get to finding that tenant buyer, a property that's closer to year 17, there's magic and miracles that happen there that a lot of people don't calculate when they're putting together these types of deals. So that's what I would suggest you look for. A great place to find those folks. Notice of substitute trustee. What does that mean? The bank is saying, hey, remember in that note and deed of trust, we told you that attorney John Smith was going to foreclose on you? Well, instead, we're going to appoint attorney Bob Johnson, and he's going to foreclose on you. When does a bank usually send that notice out? When does a bank usually send that notice out? 60 days prior to auction, right? So they're behind, but they're maybe not all the way behind. Another list is the pre-foreclosure list, right? But that's 21 days before the auction. So you've got to double time in both directions, getting the seller to work with you, getting an end buyer to work with you. And the tough part about when they're already about to go to auction is that more of your end buyer's down payment is going to reinstate the loan instead of going to you. Right? So Bob got some little tricks for that, but was this helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So please do some research on that. There are a lot of attorneys who have written about that. Don't trust the ones that say, here's how you can get around that law, right? Because a jury of your peers who could not get out of jury duty, they're not going to be siding with you. I can pretty much guarantee that, right? You're going to be like the January 6th trials going on there. All right, I got a couple people to laugh. Okay, good. Thank you, guys. All right, so I'm going to get us ready for the next part of the presentation. So thank you guys for joining us.